Hey everyone, it's Moxxi from Proguides here, bringing you the top 4 carry roles of the current meta. We'll discuss what makes these heroes good, how to play them, and how to counter them. But before we do that, here's our question of the day. What would you do to put your favorite hero on top of this list? Now without further ado, let's get straight into our video. Faceless Void is a hyper carry that is fortunately not useless in the early game, because this hero has access to a powerful spell known as Chronosphere that his team is able to combo with. During the long cooldown of Chrono, Faceless Void players don't mind taking the safe lane farm of the triangle cap on the map to get close to the items he needs to practically solo carry the game. Faceless Void just wants to be able to farm for the laning stage. You can posture aggressively, abusing the fact that you can time walk off any damage so long as you know that the enemies don't have spells to kill you afterwards. In other words, no stuns or slows to lock you down after your long cooldown time walk. After the laning phase, you want to safely farm your triangle camp so that you can get the items you need to carry the game. When you aren't farming the triangle camp, be sure to push a lane out so that you aren't completely useless during the early to mid game, because the enemies will have to use TPs in order to respond to the pressure of creeps pushing a lane against one of their towers. The triangle camp is your home for the first nearly 20 minutes of the game. The only time you leave is to use Chronosphere on a guaranteed pickoff where there is close to a 0% chance of you dying, such as an enemy hero being completely out of position and your team nearby to assist you. Past 20 minutes, when you have a few items under your belt, it's time to start joining your team in team fights. Make it a priority to farm towards your team and use Chronosphere to either counter-initiate or initiate team fights. Don't be stressed about hitting a 5-man chrono. Even getting a chrono on one key enemy core will be enough to win the fight. Pick heroes that can chain stun him, such as Sand King or Lina. You can also pick slow harassing heroes, such as Venomancer, to chip him down. Surviving the chrono is another great option against Faceless Void because that is the main force behind this hero, which is why getting an Aeon Disc is nice against Faceless Void. After getting an Ags upgrade on becoming Superman, getting a talent that lets his Stormhammer dispel enemies, and his ult going back to the added bonus damage, SVEN has become a menace in pubs once again. This hero is another hyper carry that's able to two-shot enemy heroes once he gets enough farm. SVEN isn't great at being active during the laning phase. Be sure to stack and pull for yourself if your support isn't. It's very important for you to get levels so that you can jungle as soon as possible. Maxing Cleave sets you up to transition to the jungle as soon as possible, and once you have God Strength, you can jungle quickly with it activated. It's very helpful that while you're jungling your safe jungle, to stack camps when you can. Transition into the triangle camp once you get Mask of Madness or Hand of Midas, and don't leave until you have Echo Saber and either an Ags or BKB. You won't be useful for fighting before then either way. A way that you cannot be completely useless though is pushing out lanes to force the enemies to react to the pressure you created. In this way, you can contribute without putting yourself at too much risk. Once you have both Ags and BKB, you're nearly immortal and can solo carry team fights by pressing your God Strength and Stormhammer. During the actual team fights, kill the supports first because they're usually the ones that will be able to kite you the hardest if they don't die at the start of the fight. Also, don't rush into any fights as SVEN. Bait your team to see where you can place a multi-hero Stormhammer into God Strength so that you can ideally wipe out multiple enemies at once. Don't waste your BKB either. Use it if you haven't stunned any heroes that are able to kite you. Dealing with SVEN before he gets his God Strength is important. Faceless Void is a hero that can bring SVEN from a full to 0 hit points in a Chronosphere. One of the few items that can disjoint the Stormhammer Dispel's talent is a Blink Dagger, so make sure to pick one up. A Eul's will disable him for a couple seconds, as will a Heaven's Halberd. A Lotus Orb will make it so he can stun himself, buying you time to use spells on SVEN in order to kite him. DROW Ranger is a bully in the laning phase that saw some nice buffs in 7.27b, namely more minimum damage on each auto attack, more movement speed, and an increased base armor. Her Gust makes it so she's able to kill elusive popular heroes like Faceless Void or Void Spirit. She also quickly farms thanks to her multi-shot. Don't be scared to play DROW aggressively during the laning. Abuse the fact that you can use frost arrows that won't aggro the creep wave. Bully the offlaner off the wave as much as you can with the help of your support. When the siege units arrive, be sure to apply pressure to the tower as a result of bullying the offlaner and position 4. Farm jungle and push out lanes when rotating to the lane when you want to pressure the tower with your team. When your team is waiting for long spell ultimate cooldowns, feel free to farm the safe triangle camps. During team fights, make sure to be in the back line. Your primary source of damage will come from using a full duration multi-shot on the enemies. Don't feel pressured to be in the front, so bait your team to get a well-placed multi-shot. Use Gust on any enemy hero that is capable of killing you. Then you can slightly run away and use multi-shot if you have it. DROW Ranger lineups are capable of taking Roshan rather quickly and early on as well. Be sure to ask your team to attempt Roshan once you have a Dragon Lance, Yasha, and your team preferably has a Medallion or Vlad's. Drow Ranger is vulnerable to heroes that are able to penetrate the backlines. Void Spirit can easily catch a Drow Ranger off guard in the backlines and kill her before she gets any of her spells off. Besides being vulnerable to heroes that like to be on top of their enemies, she isn't able to threaten high ground quick enough against popular late game carries, such as Spectre, because of how hard it is to breach high ground in this patch. Phantom Assassin received nice buffs in patch 7.27b, namely more minimum attack damage, Ag's cooldown reduction of blur, and a talent that added cast range to Phantom Strike. With access to blur, she can safely farm Ancients from level 7, and can transition into an early Desolator, which allows her to potentially one-shot the enemies. Phantom Assassin likes to poke her enemies early on with Stifling Dagger. While they're slowed, it's ideal to get some auto attacks off on them before they run away. Over time, this can lead to a kill once the enemies are low enough. However, you should look to farm as a result of using Stifling Daggers, because the enemies will run away from the creep wave due to being threatened. After laning, you can quickly transition into the Triangle Camp, where you keep farming until you have Desolator. In between this time, make sure to push out lanes with Blur activated to apply pressure that the enemies will be forced to deal with. Once you have Desolator, you can look to help your team by seeing if you get crits with your Stifling Dagger. But don't commit too hard because you're still vulnerable to dying at this point. Once you acquire BKB, you'll still use Stifling Dagger to look for crits. And once you get one, you can shamelessly go in with your Phantom Strike and use BKB in case the enemies have spells to kite you with. Then you can focus on another target once your spells are off cooldown again with the BKB still on. Focus the supports first in team fights because they'll quickly die to you. Then you can focus the squishy core. In other words, focus heroes that you're able to 1 or 2 shot because they have low armor and low HP. During the downtime, use Blur to farm out lanes and farm jungle camps so that you can apply pressure while farming your key items. Wind Ranger is one of the scariest heroes for Phantom Assassin because she has evasion, builds MKB as a first item, and can kill PA from full to 0 with 1 shackle shot. While playing against a PA, you'll need to get an early MKB. PA is also susceptible to magical damage, so heroes that are able to deal high magical burst damage, like Alina, will be able to deal with PA who doesn't have much protection against high magical burst damage. Thanks for watching this video about the better carry roles of the patch. I appreciate you taking the time to watch why these heroes are good, how they're played, and how to play against them. I hope this helps you gain plenty of MMR, and I hope to see you in another video.